Thank you so much, Corey and Ilhan and all the incredible doctors that spoke. The answer is not war crimes. It can never be war crimes. So I want to thank you so much for your incredible courage. I know for a fact, many of my friends who work in the medical field, that it has been hard to just even merely exist, to merely be in spaces with those that don't want you to speak up against the injustices that you see over and over again when you just turn your phone on and just look. So thank you so much for your courage in this moment to stand on the right side of history. We know that there is a concerted effort to silence those speaking up for peaceful coexistence and the human rights of all people. We will not be silent. Fighting to save lives, no matter faith, no matter ethnicity, should not be controversial, especially when the majority of Americans outside of this institution supports a ceasefire. The images coming out of Gaza are horrific. Netanyahu has resumed his genocidal bombing campaign with President Biden's support. We need a permanent ceasefire now. We cannot look away. According to recent data of polling that came out, and this is important because, you know, they listen to polling sometimes when it doesn't even matter. But 76% of Democrats support conditioning funding to Israel and upholding human rights. We must ensure that everyone sees exactly what the extremist Netanyahu is doing to thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians, especially our children who are being starved in Gaza and pulled out of the rubble, many in their pajamas. These are brutal reality of occupation and apartheid. Doctors, nurses, ambulance workers targeted and killed while trying to save lives. Patients are terrified, dodging Israeli fire in the hospital compounds, literally in the entryway of the emergency entry. Can you imagine? Operating rooms overflowing with dead and dying men, women, and children, medical staff desperately trying to save who they can without even the most basic supplies, food or clean water or medicine, surgeries, amputations, literally cutting children's legs off with no anesthesia. On the floor. This one's hard for me. The decomposing bodies of premature babies exposed for the world to see at Al-Nasser Children's Hospital after Israeli forces bombed it and forced the medical staff to evacuate. Hearing that doctor that was forced out, leaving her babies. It was her babies too. And for them to come back, for her to come back and see decomposing bodies of these 4 premature babies on oxygen were found eaten by worms, blackened by mold, and mauled by stray dogs. Why? Because they're Palestinian babies? You want to look away? They're babies. The dehumanization and violence is horrific. I hate giving them my tears, but I'm not crying because of them. I'm crying because our shared humanity is getting lost every single day. We do not call for a ceasefire. Why? Why do my colleagues continue to ignore the voices of their constituents? They send me pictures of people protesting in front of their offices, and I say, why? You think I'm not in charge? Those are your residents. Yeah. Go out there and talk to them. Talk to them. Meet with them. Sit down with them. They're your constituents. Y'all, the United Nations General Assembly supports a ceasefire. All the major human rights organizations support a ceasefire. These doctors support a ceasefire. Presidents and world leaders around the globe support a ceasefire. The Pope supports a ceasefire. This isn't controversial. It's long past time for my colleagues to recognize our shared humanity and value all human life. Congresswoman Cori Bush and I should not have to sit on the steps with no authorization to say we're going to mourn all lives. Both Israelis and Palestinians, no matter their faith. Our movement for ceasefire is only growing stronger, and I'm grateful for each and every single of voices here today, especially my doctors in the Michigan 12th Congressional District. I will continue to demand a ceasefire, the immediate delivery of enough humanitarian aid in Gaza. And I say this, enough. The release of all hostages and those arbitrarily detained by Israel. Every American to come home and demand that the Palestinian people live free from occupation. The path to peace must include addressing the root causes, y'all, of this conflict, of ending the blockade, the occupation, the apartheid. Can't ignore it anymore. The Palestinian people deserve to live with equal rights, freedom, and human dignity. The Israeli government has killed over 16,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including over 6,000 children. Over 1.7 million Palestinians have been displaced from their homes. Many of their children are asking, when are we going home? There is no home to go back to. And thousands are missing under the rubble. So I once again stand here to ask my colleagues, how many more lives will be enough for you all? How many more innocent civilians and children have to be killed? How many more lives will you accept as collateral damage? There's nothing humanitarian about giving Palestinians a few days of rest before they are bombed again. We are calling for an end of this violence, not a break in the violence. The temporary pauses are not enough. We need a permanent ceasefire now. We need an end to the genocide. President Biden, I say this over and over again because I hope you hear me. You must listen to the voices of the majority of Americans and the majority of Democrats who worked their butt off to get you elected. You have to represent all of us, Mr. President, not just some. Call for a ceasefire now.